next syllable type. So far we have talked about closed syllables. So we're going to move into our next syllable type, which is a magic E syllable. All right, so let's go ahead. And before we talk about a magic E syllable, let's review the concept of a syllable using our chant. So let's use our motions and say that with me. A syllable is a word or part of a word with one vowel sound. Very nice, excellent job. So we know a syllable is a word or a part of a word with one vowel sound. And we can start off by introducing the concept of syllables to our students orally through our phonological awareness. All right, who remembers how can we have students count syllables orally? Yes, good. Yes, very good. By putting their hand underneath their chin and feeling how many times their chin bumps their hand. And why does that work? Yeah, it's multisensory. But why would your chin bump down to your hand when you say a syllable? Yes, good. Whenever we're making a vowel sound, and it is very multisensory versus clapping, right? Because we can actually feel those syllables. Because whenever we produce a vowel sound, our chin has to drop so that air can flow freely out. Very nice. And we also talked about how there are 6 different types of syllables. So in print, our students can learn to identify syllables by looking at the patterns. And it's the pattern of the vowel and the consonant that tells us what sound that vowel is going to make. And what mnemonic can we use to remember the 6 syllable types? Clover, good. Is this an order of instruction? No. It's simply a visual and a mnemonic device where every letter starts with the name of one of the 6 syllable types. So far we have learned a closed syllable. And we learned that a closed syllable has what pattern? Vowel consonant, VC. Good. So we have a vowel that's closed up on the end by one or more consonants. And the vowel makes what sound? It's short sound. So what sound does a short A make? Good. How about short I? Short O. Short E. Short U. Excellent. All right. And we did our chant too. Let's see if we can do our chant so we get a little movement. All right. Ready? Here we go. The vowel's closed up on the end and is short. Very nice. So far, all of the words that we have been reading and spelling have had short vowels. So if we look at this word right here, so you have this word on your paper, and we can see that we have the vowel closed up by the consonant. Can you show me on your paper what mark are you going to use to show that this vowel is going to make its short sound? Very good. A breath. Excellent. Right, so we can teach our students to use that coding to signal to themselves what sound the vowel is going to make. So we're going to move in now. So grab your Clover graphic organizer from earlier. And I'd like for you to go ahead and add magic E to your graphic organizer. Students are often introduced to long vowel sounds through magic E syllables. So many times this is going to be their first introduction to the vowel saying its name, to its long sound. All right. Sometimes we will introduce long vowel sounds with open syllables. It depends on the student. And when we talk about open syllables more tomorrow, we can talk about how do you know, should I introduce those long vowel sounds with magic E or should I introduce it with an open syllable? So there are different ways to introduce the long sounds. Just want to make sure it's magic E added in there. So let's talk about what is a magic E syllable. So a magic E syllable has the pattern of a vowel followed by a consonant followed by magic E. All right, so on your graphic organizer, I'd like for you to go ahead and add that pattern by magic E. So we have vowel, consonant, and E. so everyone, let's say the pattern. So what pattern does a magic E syllable has?
Vowel, consonant, E.
Perfect. Vowel, consonant, E. So the E is silent, and the vowel before the consonant is going to say its name or its long sound. So as an example, in the word tape, A consonant E, the A says A. In the word Pete, E consonant E is the pattern, and the E says E. Right? In dime, we have the pattern I consonant E, and the I says I. Good. In bone, we have O consonant E, and the O says O. So U consonant E is where we have some fun, okay? Because U has two long sounds. So if we listen to the word mule and we listen to those sounds, we have M, U, O. So everyone tap that. M, U, O. Okay, so mule. So we hear the U sound. So it says its name. But now listen as I tap the sounds in the word tube. Ooh. What vowel sound did you hear? Ooh. Good. So everyone tap that. Ooh. So the reason that U consonant E has two sounds is all for ease of pronunciation. All right? Your mouth wants to do the thing that is the easiest. It is the principle of least resistance. All right, so try to say tube with a U sound. To you. To you. Do you feel how awkward that is, right? And how your mouth is having to do extra work. Tube. Right? We're saying tube is much easier. So your mouth is going to take the path of least resistance. So here are some examples of words that have these magic E patterns. So how you're going to break them up is going to depend on the student. So this is where we're going to be diagnostic and prescriptive depending on who we are teaching. So if I'm teaching an emergent reader and I am introducing long vowel sounds in this magic E pattern for the very first time, then I might be breaking it up one pattern at a time. If I'm teaching a student that has more advanced skills and has knowledge of magic E, then I might teach that in larger groups or teach the concept all together. I do recommend, because of the U consonant E having those two sounds, of teaching those sounds together in isolation and not with all the other sounds, because it can be a little bit tricky having the U and the OO sound. Right, so again, how you break it up is going to depend on the student, but I do recommend teaching U consonant E on its own. All right, after you've taught A consonant E, E consonant E, I consonant E, and O consonant E. One thing to notice is that E consonant E actually doesn't have a lot of one-syllable words. Right, there's not a lot. So even the words I have up here, Pete is short for Peter. Eve is short for evening. Steve is short for Stephen. A grebe is a type of bird, but it's not a common word that kids use a lot. There's not a lot of one-syllable words, because one-syllable words that have the long E sound are usually spelled with the vowel teams EE or EA, which we're going to come to in the next couple of days. However, there are a lot of multisyllabic words that have a magic E syllable. So think of concrete, crete, C-R-E-T-E, complete, P-L-E-T-E, athlete, L-E-T-E. So we see E consonant E pattern more in multisyllabic words. So just something to be aware of when you're building your lessons. Are there any questions about any of these patterns? So remember your steps when you're introducing a skill for the first time. We're going to link to prior learning. We're going to integrate our phonemic awareness, give direct and explicit instruction, provide multi-sensory practice. We're going to model. We're going to read and spell words with a new skill, and we're going to progress from simple to complex. So we're going to go through this sequence, and we're going to think about how would we introduce magic E to a student for the first time, and we're going to use the A consonant E pattern. So what skills do students already know? So let's say you're about to introduce A consonant E. What skills do they already know that would be helpful for them before learning A consonant E? Got some clues? Yeah, you can connect. We know one syllable type, now we're gonna learn another one, right? So we can make that connection that we know in a closed syllable, the vowel is going to say its short sound, so A says ah. Today we're going to learn another syllable type, right? How about the concept of a syllable, right? Don't we wanna make sure, if we say we're gonna learn another syllable type, don't we wanna make sure our students remember what a syllable is? And if you think back to how did I start this lesson today, what did we do? We reviewed the concept of a syllable and the concept of a closed syllable, right? So we're gonna link known to new. So always think about, what do my students already know that's gonna prepare them? How can I prime the pump for the new learning? And then we're gonna incorporate our phonemic awareness. So I want you to go ahead and get out your Elkonin boxes. And 3 chips. You can use whatever color.
Okay, great.
So sometimes I like to use these different colors for the vowel sound, and it doesn't matter. Okay. Like, we're limited in our color choice right now. I often will use like a red for my vowel, because to me a red, like I use my cards and have the red as the, so I'll use like this. So I'll use like pink and red for my vowels a lot. All right, so let's go ahead and we're just gonna warm up by practicing segmenting some words that have the A consonant E pattern. Now, of course, our students know that. Remember, this is all auditory, right? So we're not connecting any letters yet, but I'm gonna draw their attention to that long A vowel sound to get them ready for the new learning. So I'm gonna dictate a word, you're gonna echo it, and then you're gonna pull the sounds. Ready? Your first word is tape. Say tape.
Tape.
Good, pull your sounds. What vowel sound did you hear? A. Very nice. All right, go ahead and clear your board. All right, ready? Your next word is gain. Say gain.
Gain.
Good. Pull your sounds. What vowel sound did you hear?
A.
Excellent job. All right, clear your boards. Your next word is cane. Say cane.
Cane.
Good. Pull your sounds.
A.
What vowel sound did you hear?
A.
So you can see I haven't even talked about magic E yet, but I'm already drawing my students' awareness to that A sound, which is going to be the focus of our instruction today. So each word that we just broke apart had what vowel sound? What did they all say? A. They all had the A vowel sound. So you learned that the letter A can say a in a closed syllable. So today we are going to learn that A can also say its name, its long sound A, in what we call a magic E syllable. So we're going to provide our students with this direct and explicit instruction. All right? In a magic E syllable, it has one vowel followed by a consonant and an E. The vowel sound is long and the E is silent. Now my students is silent. All right, that E is silent. So let's look at some words that have this pattern of A consonant E. So at this time also I probably present my students and show them a phonogram card that has that A consonant E. And I might say that this little dash on our card stands for the consonant that goes between the A and the magic E. So let's look here at this word. If I look at this word, I see the pattern vowel, consonant, E. And look what consonant is coming between the A and the E. It's the consonant D. So that little dash stands for this consonant. These are students, otherwise they're not really gonna know what that little dash is for, right? Or a line, sometimes you'll put a line. So just make sure you're explicit in explaining what that stands for. So when I see that magic E at the end, guess what magic E is gonna do? Magic E is gonna reach his magic wand over the consonant and he's gonna make that vowel say its name. So I can read this word as made. So we're gonna model and show our students a few words. All right, so now I have the pattern, vowel, consonant, E. So I have A, consonant, E. So T is the consonant that comes between the A and the magic E. So remember what magic E is gonna do, what's he gonna do?
And make the A say its name.
You have got it. So now I can read
Eight.
Late. He is silent because he is so tired from using all of his magical powers to make that A say his name. He is absolutely silent. Put one more. So again, I could model. I see vowel consonant E. Magic E's gonna reach his wand and make the A say his name. He is silent. A. K. So we're gonna provide that direct and explicit instruction. And I do like to show the students some sample words when I'm talking about Magic E in the pattern, because I think it helps them see what we're talking about versus just saying it has a pattern of a vowel consonant E. It makes it a little more concrete for them. So we're gonna provide our direct and explicit instruction. There's an example of showing them a phonogram card while you're doing it. And then we want to provide multisensory practice. So what can we do to have our students do multisensory practice with a consonant E? Yeah, so if I'm in a whole class setting, an easy way, if my students are on the carpet, they could trace on the carpet, or we can grab our bumpy pad. So grab your bumpy pad, and we're gonna trace and say, we'll use cake since it's on this card. All right, we're gonna trace and say, A consonant E, cake, A. All right, ready, let's trace. A consonant E, cake, A. Good, again. A consonant E, cake, A. Again. A consonant E, cake, A. Good, do it with your eyes closed. A consonant E, cake, A. Excellent job. So we're going to provide that multi-sensory practice. All right, and then we can introduce reading words again with a blending drill. So I love to incorporate a blending drill with my new information because it is more scaffolded and we're going from that part to whole. So we do, I do it, we do it, you do it. So I'll do the first one. A, sail. A, sing. Now so far I've used real words, but I'm going to transition to using nonsense words. And we've already talked about a little bit when is it appropriate to use nonsense words?
When they're older.
Yeah, when they're older would be appropriate. Any other times we want to use nonsense words?
If you think they might be memorizing.
Yeah, we think they're memorizing. Good. So maybe if the students are older and they kind of memorized a lot of words and they recognize them by sight, we might want to use more nonsense words. And again, because we are all proficient readers, we are going to use nonsense words. All right, ready? So I'm going to do one more. A. All right, join me please, and I want you to tap with your fingers from left to right. Ready? Ready? A. Hey. Z. A. Zate. Z. A. Zate. Do it. A. Tate. A. Tave. A. Bave. Very good. Excellent job. So we can lead our students through in that same way. And we've also talked about the importance of our word choice of thinking from simple to complex with the words that we're choosing. So let's think with our Magic E patterns, we could have words that have two sounds. So an example would be like the word ate. A-T-E, ate. Right, would only have two sounds. A little more complex would be a word that has three sounds, like dime, D-I-E. Then we can add in digraphs. So we could have a word like shame, sh-a-m. And it's a little more complex because we have two letters representing one sound. And then we could add in our blend. So we could have a word that has four sounds or five sounds. So a word like slime or a word like strike. So what I'd like for you to do is take a minute, and don't look at the ones I already did. Try not to on the next slide. I know you have it printed, but don't look at it. Restrain yourselves. All right, try to think of some example words and just write them in some of those boxes on your slides. Try to just do a little brainstorming. You don't have to try to fill every box, but maybe even just think of a word that's Magic-y and think which category would that go into. gonna challenge you to try, don't avoid U consonant E, all right? And try to see if you can hear the difference between the two sounds. It can be very tricky. Once you taught it that, yeah, that's good. Good, and that one has how many sounds in it? Oh, please. Oh, yeah, that's All right, take one more minute and then we'll just share some of the ones that you guys came up with and I'll share some of the ones that I also brainstormed. There are word lists that definitely help. It takes practice. Yeah, right. It takes practice. You'll become very good at Wordle because you'll be like, I know every single word that has that pattern in my brain. Every word. Let's see what you came up with. And these are just some that I came up with, so but if you have any extra ones, throw them out there. So 2 sounds. Does anyone else have any other ones, or did anyone come up with any of these that are out there? What was it?
Ale.
Oh, ooh, yes, ale. Ginger ale. Ale, good. Good.
Ice.
Okay, ice, good. And what do we have to have taught to use ice?
The
The soft C, right, which we haven't talked about yet, but once you've taught it, fair game. That's definitely a magic E word that has just 2 sounds. Any other ones? Ode, absolutely, good one. O-D-E, yeah, nice. That would definitely be a good one for like an older student or more advanced skills, since it's not a word that they see a lot, but it is, you know, it is a word. Very nice. All right, how about 3 sounds? There's tons of them, right? All right, throw out one. Tell me one for A consonant E that you wrote.
Cape.
Cape. Anyone else? Game. Good. E consonant E. That one's a hard one. It is hard.
That's hard.
Yeah, there's Crete, like the island of Crete, right in Greece. Anyone else have one? No? Okay. Oh, that would be a blend though, right? It wouldn't even fall in there. I think other than Pete. All right, how about I consonant E with 3 sounds? Okay. Nice. Bite. Absolutely good. O consonant E? Rope.
Alone.
Loan. Yes. Oh, loan. Oh, like a loan. Yes, good. And that's, again, we'd have to talk about what with that one? Loan. About vocabulary, right, and usage.
Oh, yeah.
Because we've run into some homophones, right? And we start to run into that, talking about words that mean the same thing, right? And then because a student might be like, oh yeah, like if I loan you my pencil, we just say, so loan with a magic E, L-O-N-E would be like single, one, right? Like you're alone, like a lone person. All right, good. How about U consonant E saying you? Nobody? Ute. What was it? Ute. Yeah, like the tribe. Yeah, and that one could even go, yeah. And cute. 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 That's a great one. Cute. Yeah, good. Very good. You guys did good. So oo is actually more common than you. So oo is more common. All right, so how about oo? Two. All right, anything else?
Do.
What was it?
Do, like your palms.
Okay, and but does it have the pattern vowel, consonant, E?
Oh, vowel consonant.
We could have dude,
Oh,
D-U-D, right?
Okay.
So we'd have to have that, the U and then a consonant between the U and the E.
Right.
And that would be a vowel pair. Good. All right, so how about with digraphs? All right, any A consonant E digraphs? Shade, what was it? Oh, great, that would be a blend. So that would come down here into a blend because it would have 4 or 5 sounds.
I got it, I'm writing.
The terminology of blends and digraphs, yep, digraph, 2 letters. We'll have to bring out the Jack Hartman video. This will stick in your head forever. You'll never forget it. All right, how about E consonant E with digraph? There's these, but we would have had to talk about S saying Z, so we'd have to make sure we taught our students that before we used it. How about with I consonant E? Prime. So is that how many sounds in prime?
Yep. It's the next one.
Yeah, it would be a blend. Yeah, so it would fall in this category, but it is a wonderful magic E word. Yep, but it's you can hear each of those sounds. Yep. Any O consonant E with digraphs? Oh, phone. Good. And what would we have had to taught to use phone? The PH. As long as we taught PH, it's fair game. Good. Any other?
Chose.
Chose. Good. And we'd again have to teach the S saying Z, so something to be aware of. All right. How about, I didn't have any. Did anyone come up with a digraph with? No. How about with U? Oh, that's not even a digraph. Sorry, guys. That should be down here. Did anyone come up with a digraph for U consonant E saying U? No. Okay. I did not. Either of those are in the wrong spot. All right. A consonant E with a blend. Again, there's one. Place, yeah. What would students have to know? What would we have had to taught to use place?
The soft C.
The soft C. C sinks. Good. Any other ones? Yeah, brave. That's a great one. Brave. Good. That has 4 sounds. All right. How about with E consonant E? I have Steve and breathe. Any other ones? I talked about not a lot of options there. All right. I consonant E.
Slime.
Ooh, slime. Nice. And how about O consonant E? Spoke, yeah. There we go. Good. Spoke. Excellent. That's a great one. All right, how about U consonant? So I had flute and prune for the OO sound. Anybody else have any?
Flume.
Flume, absolutely. Flume. And does that say the U sound or the OO sound? Ooh. Very good. Ooh, yeah.
So it'd be the N.
You'll do this one.
Okay.
Shoot.
Oh, yeah.
About shoot.
Yeah. So like a chute, like CHUTE, like a laundry chute.
Yeah, laundry.
Yes, and of course, and it wouldn't be likely that we would have taught our students, but that does, as long as we taught the CH saying sh, which is a more advanced skill and it's French origin. So if you think of words like chauffeur, champagne, those words are French origin, and the CH, the name Charlotte, so the CH saying sh, that's great, yeah. But it is a word that would say the OO sound. Very nice. So again, the point being, your word choice, think about the students that you're teaching and moving from simple to complex. The more sounds a word has, you're increasing the complexity. All right, so simple to complex. So we're gonna talk now about how to code words that are magic E syllables. So I'm gonna do a couple first on the board as an example, and then we're gonna go to our Clover packets. We're going to mark some. So let's say I had this nonsense word right here. So if you think back to when we talked about coding our closed syllables, our very first step is we're going to find the first vowel. So I'm going to underline my vowel. And now I'm going to look after it at the pattern. So I have a vowel, a consonant, and E. And I know when I have vowel, consonant, E, that is a magic E pattern. All right, magic E. Now you might need to, like we had talked about earlier, you may need initially to code what comes after that vowel so the students can see that pattern. All right, eventually I kind of drop that, but initially, mostly for emerging readers and spellers, they need to see that. So when I have vowel, consonant, E, it is a magic E. So I'm going to mark it with an E. And then I'm going to mark this A with a macron, and that means that that O is going to say its name, O. So that little line is called, it's either pronounced macron or macron, just like breve or brev. If you look it up in the dictionary, either pronunciation is acceptable. Okay, either one is acceptable. I think because there's like the British and American English versions of it. So a macron. So that means that this O is going to say its name, and I could read it O, and we know that the E is silent. For younger students, again, sometimes they like to mark off the E, which I'm fine with. Just make sure they don't completely black that E out because it is still very much there. So we want them to keep the E there. And I've even seen some students draw a little arrow to signify that E is going to make the vowel in front of the consonant say its name. So again, this is some additional coding that I don't always do. So my goal is to kind of move from this to just underlining the vowel, touching and looking at the pattern. I have vowel, consonant, E. So this is a magic E syllable. And the vowel is going to say its name. O. So O. So this is kind of where I usually go, just so it's not so visually overwhelming, but some students need those extra coding to help them remember that that E is silent and it's going to make the vowel in front of the consonant say its name. All right, before we go to your paper, I'm going to show you one more, just because it's always good to talk about our friend QU. All right, so if I had Q-U-A-T-E, what am I going to underline as my vowel?
A.
The A. Why am I not going to underline the U? Yes. Q and U stick like glue, right? They go together. All right, you never see a Q without a U. So I'm going to underline the A as my vowel, and then I'm going to look at my pattern. I have the pattern A, consonant, E. So this is a magic E syllable, so I'm going to mark it with an E. So using my clover, I'm going to mark it with an E. And then I'm going to mark it with a macron. And then I'm going to read it 8. So go ahead, and I'd like for you to get out your clover packet. Go ahead to your magic E page, and let's do the first row together, and then you all can finish them on your own and read them. All right, so let's look at our first row. And obviously the first one is a real word. I have a little mix here of real and some nonsense. All right, so what's my first step I'm going to do on this word? Underline the vowel. Which vowel? Underline the A. Very good. All right, what am I going to do now?
Label the consonant.
Yes, I could label the consonant and the E if I wanted to, so I'm going to look at what comes after the vowel. It's all about what follows it. So I could label it like this. All right, so I have the pattern vowel, consonant, E. What syllable type? Magic E. So we're going to mark it with an E. And what am I going to mark the A? Yep.
No.
Yeah, it's okay. Macron. Yeah, you can say macron. Macron. Good. Macron, macron. There we go. All right, and then we would read it. We know this is a real word, so it's the word indeed. Good. Let's do one more together. All right, so we're on D-I-P-E. All right, so everyone, what's my first step? Underline the vowel. All right, which one? The I. All right, I'm going to look at what comes after the vowel. So what pattern do we see? Vowel, consonant, E. So what syllable type? Magic E. So we're going to mark it with a E. Good. And I'm going to mark my I with a macron, which tells me it's going to say its name. I is long sound. Good. So I would read it as type. Very nice. All right, I'd like for you to go ahead through, mark the rest of them. When you're done, practice reading them with a partner. finish, go ahead and read with the partner. Read them out loud with the partner.
Alright, so we did 8 and you died. So it'll be
You could say,
this would be
well,
right now.
yes, if you have. What's more likely to this you should probably learn at this point?
Yeah.
I said I want to say clove. Right. But it's not in so many
An
ways.
analogy, remember how we
So,
talked about my
Chol.
And it could be, or, I'm sorry, it could be CH if you knew the Greek, which is less common. Yeah.
So there's like some nonsense stuff now.
The Q you almost got.
The first one.
Yeah.
Same.
I know.
Don't make me do it all.
I know.
I
I saw Greg. I just thought it was deeper.
This one is like, it's so hard.
That's what she was saying too. She said she wanted to read it as Chloe.
Yeah. I was like, no, it's cold. And I was like, oh my gosh,
Which
no.
it could be cold. If you had learned and you knew that CH could say, it could be
Yeah.
But I would prefer to do this like
You could just show that, like, when I'm saying vowel consonant, so we're vowel consonant.
Yeah.
You know, so that I understand, this is an abstract, yeah, so it helps them to understand it's not one.
Yeah.
All right, let's read the first row out loud together. All right, you ready? We're gonna go row, so we're going to go across. Ready?
8, dipe, loop, theme, chol, shave, plume, fleet, grike, stride, throop, sloan.
And that one's interesting, and why I heard a lot of people talking about that one. What went through your heads when you were reading that one?
The number 1.
Yes, what could you not unsee, right? The number one, right? And as we talk about like open syllables, and we'll kind of get into it more tomorrow, sometimes if we see like T-O, like in topaz, it's kind of hard to unsee. The T-O, we think two, and our students will think that also. But if you think words like bone, right, that they would have that O consonant E. But it kind of stands out as you. Another one that came up was the C-H-O-L-E, which at this point in instruction, probably our students have learned that CH says what? So it would most likely be chol, but we know that CH can also say k in Greek, so it could be kol in that case. So if you knew that, then you would have a logical reason for reading it that way. All right. Let's see, so how about in this one right here? L-U-V. How'd you read that one? Lu. So did you read it with an oo or a u sound?
Ooh.
An oo sound. All right. And how come every single one of us all read it with an oo sound, even though we've never heard that before? Yeah, the path of least resistance, right? Saying liu just feels awkward, right? It just feels awkward. So again, you can kind of see how naturally your mouth is going to do what is the easiest. Very nice. Okay, so for spelling, so we know that we always read words with the skill and then we spell. We talked a lot about phoneme, grapheme, mapping early with our closed syllables, so we're not going to do this together right now, but I want to show you how you would have your students map it. So if this were the word robe, was the word I was dictating to my students, so I would have them pull chips for the sounds, r, o, b, and then I would show them how to map the letters. So the r sound is R, the O sound is O, and the b sound is B. But I need a magic E to make that O say its name. And we know that E is silent. So that's why there is no chip above the E, because it doesn't make a sound. All right, so we have 3 sounds and 4 letters. So initially, for our emerging spellers, we're going to need to provide that explicit instruction and show them how to map the sounds and symbols together for students who are learning Magic E for the very first time. So now we are going to practice spelling some Magic E. Of course, I'm going to give you some nonsense words, right? To make it fun. So I'd like for you to use an index card and put your name, because I am going to collect them as a little informal kind of assessment here. So put your name, and if you make a mistake, we know that that's totally okay, because mistakes help us grow and are part of the learning process. But what are we going to do if we make a mistake? We're going to hug it. Yes, we are. And we're going to use our group procedure that we talked about earlier. Our group procedure. So I'm going to say it, you're going to echo it, we're going to tap the sounds, and then you're going to go to paper and write the word. And hopefully, as good students, you're going to read back your word and make sure that it's the word that I dictated. All right, so here's our first word, tibe.
Tibe. Tibe.
So tibe, we would have T-I-B-E, tibe. Number 2, chone.
Chone. Ch-O-N.
Excellent. So chone, we had ch-c-h, and then o-n-e, chone. All right, number 3, spale.
Spale. A-O.
All right, so for spale, we have S-P-A-L-E, spale. Doing good. Spale. All right, and then last one, sproon.
Sproon.
What sound did you hear?
Spoon.
All right, so sproon. We have S-P-R, and how do we spell that oo sound? U-N-E. And this is a tricky one, because often when we think of the oo sound, we think of O-O, the vowel team O-O. But so realizing that U consonant E also spells the oo sound is definitely the trickiest. All right, remember, anything that we write, we're going to read back at the end. All right, so everybody, let's go ahead and read back. So first one.
Tibe.
Good.
Chone.
Next one.
Spale. Sproon.
Good. What do you notice about my word choice from numbers 1 through 4?
Different vowels.
Okay, ooh, I included all the different vowels. Very nice. So if I had taught all of them, I would definitely include all of them. Simple to complex. Because let's say I do tibe and my student is already struggling. I can make an on-the-spot decision that I'm not going to start adding in digraphs and blends. So you can be diagnostic and prescriptive in that moment. But if we're doing well with 3 sounds, then I can add in, right? And I'm gonna start to make it more complex. So we can always pivot even from what we had planned in our lesson plan. Very nice. And then a reminder of our one-on-one procedure, which we're going to practice a little bit more of where the student would finger spell it too. So let's say I gave them the word spine. All right, so if I said spine, they would say spine, S-P-I-N-E. And then they would write and say S-P-I-N-E. So that procedure is more simultaneously multisensory because the student is saying it and hearing it while they're writing it. And we're also catching those mistakes with the finger spelling before we go to paper. All right, very good. So we will practice that procedure more. All right, let us get out our Magic E-Dex. So let's talk a little bit more about our decks now. We're going to use our phonogram cards again when we're introducing, and then once our students have learned each of our Magic E patterns, we're going to add them into our visual drill, right? So as with any skill, once our students have got it and we're moving on, we're going to incorporate that skill into our visual drill for cumulative review. So in our deck, let's make sure we all know what we have. So we have A consonant E, K, A. We have, this one's a hard one, E consonant E, P, E. So this used to have a picture that was hard to decipher, so now it has the name to help. Because like we said, E consonant E is a hard one to know what it is. So this little guy's name is Pete, right? All right, we have I consonant E, bike, I. O consonant E, note, O. U consonant E, cube, U. U consonant E, tube, oo. And then this one right here, this is Greek. It is advanced, so you're not gonna pull this out at the very beginning when you're first introducing Magic E. All right, but it's Y consonant E, type I. Y consonant E, type I. You wanna write down the back, you're welcome to, all right? Y consonant E, type I. So whenever we see this spelling in words like type and style, we know that that word is of Greek origin. So we talked about that Y can be a vowel, and we're going to talk about more Y is a vowel in an open syllable tomorrow, but Y can be a vowel in a Magic E syllable, like in the word type. All right, I'd like for you to grab your bumpy pads, please. I'm going to mix these up, and we're going to do a quick visual drill, and then you're going to practice it with a partner. I'm going to set aside the Y consonant type I and just focus on the basic patterns. All right, so everybody remember, have your bumpy pad. Thank you. All right, ready? So 2 fingers for tracing, so we get the most tactile input. Ready? Here we go. I consonant E,
bike, I. U consonant E, cube, U. U consonant E, tube, oo. O consonant E, note, O. A consonant E, cake, A. E consonant E, heat, E.
Excellent. Go ahead and practice with your partner and practice being the teacher and the student doing the visual drill with the Magic E cards in there.
Consonant E, Pete, E. Consonant E, bite, I. O, consonant E, note, U, consonant E, O, consonant E, A, consonant,
Yeah.
E,
There's a
H.
lot of
I'm like Indian.
Yes, there's a lot of pieces to it.
I didn't, I should have like Brady. Oh, sorry. Yeah, and I'm like,
If I was a teacher, that would be nice. End of the year teacher.
Hey, I guess.
My last day of work was last Friday.
Oh, man.
All right, I'm back in.
So promise or this one is actually more. Okay, so a lot of yes, so it's actually more common because it's going to be easier to say this sound. Okay, however, because this is the name of the letter, I usually start with it because they're all the name of the letter. So, but I've seen it done both ways. To be honest, but this technically this is more common, but something like I introduce this one first because it's the name of the letter. Okay, so it makes more sense based on what they know of each other patterns. Okay, so if students are representing I've had, they've had pretty good. Yes, yes, and they'll know. Yes, and sometimes they're not being forced to do lessons. I've had teachers do it though. Kids that aren't gonna because tell us we're not kind of worried at this point because it's just Wednesdays always. So, like there's not many songs. We just have to reuse the word more creatively. I've seen it done for kids who really need it.
And the next one,
Like I think there's no there. Yeah, absolutely. But because we know that long vowels are the name of the vowel, it does go that way. You know what I'm saying?
she was like 140 people.
Does anybody have any questions about visual drill? Anything that came up? So likewise, once our students have learned our long vowel sounds, we're going to incorporate that into our auditory drill. So once our students have learned those long vowel sounds, we're going to put it in our auditory drill. So now, when we dictate A, our students are going to write A consonant E. When we dictate E, they're going to write E consonant. I consonant E, O consonant E, and then for U or Oo, they would write U consonant E. Right, so let's practice just a couple. You can practice on your notes page. Okay, you don't need to turn this into me. All right, so first one, I'm going to say the sound. Remember auditory drill. I'm going to say the sound. You're going to echo, and then you're going to write the spelling. So I. You echo, and then you wrote I consonant E. Good. Number 2, ooh. And then you're going to write U consonant E. Number 3, A. And then you're going to write A consonant E. Number 4, O. So do we see, so once they've learned those long vowel sounds, those are new sounds we are adding to our auditory drill. And over time, as we introduce more ways to spell those sounds, we're gonna make sure our students write them in order based on frequency and the placement in the word. So as we come to each new spelling over the next couple of days, I'll show you how to add those in and what order the students are going to write them in. And we know that anything our students write, they're going to read back. So let's read back those sounds. All right, number 1. U or Excellent. Any questions about adding in to the visual and auditory drill after you've taught Magic E? So anytime you teach your new skill, it's going to go into your visual auditory drill and your review reading for cumulative review, so we keep reviewing it. We teach the mastery. All right, let's talk about a couple of other Magic E activities. So that was kind of we did our basic instruction. How are we going to introduce Magic E, going through our steps of providing that direct explicit instruction, multisensory practice, reading words, and spelling words. So let's talk about some other activities that you can do and how you can differentiate Magic E based on different settings. So a large group setting, a one-on-one setting, older students with more advanced skills. So first, let's do an activity that you can do in the classroom, similar to what we did with syllable division earlier today. So this is a fun activity. So Shauna, would you go stand first? Would you mind standing after Shauna? Would you mind standing after Becky? Would you mind standing after Kate? All right. All right, excellent. So we could have our students. You have a very so Jenny is Magic E. She has a very important job because we know that Magic E has magical powers. All right, so Magic E is going to reach his magic wand all the way over, and he's going to give all his powers, and he's going to be so tired after using all of that power that he's going to be silent. All right, so we're going to tap and read this word. So everyone get out your tapping fingers. All right, ready? Let's read this word.
Gate. Gate.
Next, all right, Magic E, do your job. Ready? Here we go.
Game.
Very nice. All right, Magic E, do your work. Ready?
Name.
Very good. Ready? Magic E?
Lane.
So you can see you can have them. And whoever gets to be Magic E feels very special and honored. Like, there you go. So, that's a fun activity, obviously, that works in a classroom because you have to have enough students to have them come up to the front of the room and then also to be able to have some students, right, that teach the lesson too. So that's a fun activity. This file is one I made and it is in the folder that I'm going to share with all of you too. So you could print it and you could make that activity. So very fun. So Magic E with older students, I've talked a lot, since a lot of my experience is with older students. I've talked about how I can make Magic E age appropriate and emotionally sound for students who are older but are still needing those foundational skills. So we can use less common words or detached syllables so students apply their understanding of a Magic E syllable versus relying on memorization. All right, so less common words. So here are just some examples of some that I brainstormed. So haze, grieve, strive, probe, and fluke. So those are all Magic E words that have that same vowel consonant E pattern, but you can see that they have a little bit more sophisticated vocabulary, and then they lend themselves very nicely to developing language. When I say detached syllable, I mean a syllable that comes from a multisyllabic word. So for example, I might have used the syllable brate. It seems like a nonsense word, right? When you see it in isolation, but really it's a syllable in a multisyllabic word. So I might have brate, such as in celebrate, pleat, such as in complete, ties, such as in appetize, voke in provoke, and tude in attitude. So on their own, they're nonsense words if I were calling them words, but really they're parts of multisyllabic words. So a lot of times I'll have my students read that and be like, that would be like an appetize, that would be that last syllable for my older students. That way it really helps them to see, okay, this is actually beneficial for me and it's relatable for me. So vocabulary. So this is one way using the Frayer model that I brought vocabulary in. So I might have, we did our review word reading yesterday, so I might have a word like strive in there. And then I may go a little bit deeper by providing a slide or a page like this where I dive in and talk about the meaning of the word to bring in language and vocabulary. So if you strive to do something or strive for something, you make a great effort to do it or get it. So you try, you work, you fight. So an example is Zeke strives to keep himself fit, and then including a picture. So I've included this model a lot just to talk about that. I might say to the student, what is something that you strive to do? And they'll tell me something that they strive for. One thing that we will talk about next week when we talk about vocabulary is when we're providing definitions for our students, it's important to use a definition where the word is used in a complete sentence and it's using kid-friendly language. Because a lot of times when we look words up in the dictionary, the language is very complex and it uses words that you're like, okay, now I need to look that word up, right? So use kid-friendly language, and I'll share some resources next week of how you can come up with these definitions. but putting it into a complete sentence that offers some context too. And then some other ideas are flip cards. So this is similar to what I was saying about detached syllables. So you take an index card. Thank you. That's good, right? That's okay. This one's good. All right, so you take an index card, and one side, since so far we've only done rabbit words and ostrich words with our syllable division, but I might have the closed syllable on the front and then a magic E syllable on the back. So they might read membrane, B-R-A-N-E. So that's giving them that context of it in a multisyllabic word. Concrete. So they can just flip it. That way we're able to read multisyllabic words even before actually they've done syllable division. Because if we're giving it to them in the pieces, right, the first syllable and the second syllable, and they're blending them together, then they don't even need to be able to divide it. So would that be an example of doing analytic instruction where we go from the whole to the part, or would it be synthetic where we go from the part to the whole? Part to whole, synthetic, very good. So that would be an example of synthetic instruction. Very nice. Now once our students have learned closed syllables and magic E, we've taught magic E, we've taught those patterns in isolation, and our students have mastered them, they need a lot of practice flexing between closed syllables and magic E syllables. So words like tap versus tape, thin versus fine, mop versus mope, cut versus cute. The thing that makes magic E so tricky is you don't realize it's there until you get to the end of the word, right? And then you're like, oh, wait a second, right? And we have to go back. So we've lots of ways that we can practice this. So this is a fun activity. That's another file I made that I'm happy to share, where the students will have little, it looks like almost a closed syllable, but then they're going to take a little wand or a little magic E, and they're going to read tap, tape, pop, poke. Okay. All right, so read the first one.
Ribbit, right, mutt, mute.
Very nice. So you can see how we're flexing. We're reading it as a closed. We're reading it as a magic E syllable. So in a one-on-one setting, you could just give the students, or a small group, you could just give them those individual strips. It could be a lot to manage. I think if you had a whole class of students, and you could just have that whole page, and they just go down and they read it both ways in a whole class setting.
You can also use the magnetic letters, like,
Yeah.
because they all come multiple,
Absolutely.
like red E, all the vowels
Yeah.
are red, so you could use magnetic
Love
E's
that.
too.
And then you can put it on there themselves. I love that. That's great. Absolutely. All right, the foldables, which we talked about earlier too. So again, where we're gonna flex between, we have, what's our closed syllable? And then we have, good. And we have, and we have, great. So we flex back and forth. All right, so go ahead and grab an index card and see if you can think of one that would flex. So we're gonna make it where we're gonna fold it. And then the E will be on the back of the card, and then you can flip it. So yes, you can have a pack that you print, but you can just make them yourself from index cards too. So see if you can think of one that you could flex, close, and then magic E. Nice job. Excellent. All right, let's get a couple people to share theirs. I shared yours, you want yours? Okay, great. What do we have? Cut, and then very good. Anyone else willing to share? Good shy, I see lots of great ones.
Pan and pain.
Pan and pain, absolutely. Good. Any other ones? One more. Come on, Haley.
I have slop.
Ooh, slop to slope. Ooh, a collective. Ooh, very nice. Excellent. Again, one-on-one or in a small group, you could give the strips, or maybe if you have a center set up in your room and for a whole class setting, or there's also, you could do it like as an interactive notebook or on one page if it was too much to manage all the strips with your class. This is another tool that I like to use for flexing between short and long vowel sounds called a contrast card. So the students say only the vowel sound. So this is working on quickly flexing short and long. So here's an example of a strip. So the student would just go I, A, U, E, O, A, I, A, U, E, A, E, O, E, and they just quickly, it is hard, but they just quickly, but it makes them look all the way to the end of the word, identify the pattern as quickly as they can, and then say the vowel sound. Okay, so I use like the top one, I'll do a lot one-on-one, and then in a whole group setting, I'll do one like this. And then for you, obviously it doesn't matter if you say you or oo until you've said it and know what comes before it, because it's the sound that comes before it that's gonna tell you if it's gonna be you or oo once you say it naturally. All right, so we're gonna practice. All right, you guys ready? All right, so let's look at our red row. I'm gonna use my magic to reach. All right, so let's look at our red. So you're gonna say just the vowel sound. Ready?
I, A, U, E, O.
Next, green.
A, I, A, U, E. A, I, O, E. O, E, A, I.
Yeah, it is hard. And if you have a class, sometimes I'll say, okay, table 1, you're gonna do red. Table 2, you're gonna do green. And I'll assign them different ones. So the ones that, again, that have U consonant E, you really don't know if it's gonna say you or ew until you actually read it with the sound that comes before it. So let's say we were reading this word right here. How would you read it? Vute or voot? Vute. They both, like, there's not one that feels terrible to me, right? So it's one that I feel like could kind of go either way. All right, it's like mute or moot. Like really, they could go either way. So voot or vute, I think it could be either one. All right, how about this one? Rune, right? So that one's an oo. But you don't really know for sure. So for that one, the students can say either one, right? They can say either one. So those are contrast cards. Contrast cards. And then in our review reading, so instead of having a single word on a card like tap or tape, I could put them both on there so the students have to flex between it. So I could have slop and slope both on there, or globe and glob both on there, so they have to flex the vowel. This is a fun activity that my older students loved to do. So we're actually going to get to do this activity. So it's a sort and match. I've done it both on paper, which I'll have another day we'll do one that's on paper, like the top. And then I've also done it like with actual little syllable cards. So what you do is if we're flexing closed and magic E, I'm going to give you some syllables. All right, so you and your partner are going to sort the syllables first as closed and magic E. So what's the first thing you're going to do? Sort. Good. By closed and magic. All right, so I'm going to give you a set. So sort them on your tabletop, and I'm going to come around and check them first. Oh, I did. Perfect.
Thank you.
Great. And as you're sorting them, what are you going to make sure you do for each one? Yes, read them, right? Read them, because that's the whole point, so read them.
Cute. Size.
Yeah, the older ones are like.
Yeah.
All right, so this is a sort and match. So I want you to make sure that on the left side you have your closed syllables, and on the right side you have your magic E syllables. For students, sometimes I'll color code them that the first syllable of the word is going to be green and the second syllable will be red, just so they kind of know which one goes on which side. All right, so it's a sort and match. So now I want you to put the syllables together, one closed and one magic E, to build words.
Oh. Dispute. Nice. Capsize. Together.
Nice job.
Yeah, if you don't realize they're like, yeah, but they're breaking apart. Yeah.
Guys did awesome. All right, tell me one of the words you put together. Capsize. Ooh, what else? Stampede. Exhale. Dispute and trombone. Did we get them all? Oh, and ignite. Very nice. Excellent job. So my students used to love doing this activity because it was such a challenge to try to match up the words together. So they really loved them. Match up the syllables to build the words. All right, so we have built in our Clover deck closed syllables. So what you're going to need to do is now you're going to need to get out 6 index cards because now we're going to add magic E syllables to our Clover deck. So you need 6 cards, and I want you to write 6 magic E syllables. I'd like to challenge you. Remember, we're going to do nonsense or detached syllables. All right, nonsense word, or you can think of a detached syllable like great, like in celebrate. But you're just going to write that one syllable. You're not going to write all of celebrate. You're just going to write great. So you can think of a detached syllable or a nonsense word. Try to use every vowel sound. So your whole deck isn't just a consonant, all 6 of them. And remember, avoid words that are misspelled. So I'm not going to put beat, B-E-T-E, because that's another word that's spelled a different way. Does that make sense? So we don't want to show our students the incorrect spelling. All right, so 6 of them. I'll walk around and help you also. 6 of them. Yeah, so 6 syllables. And I'll grab your sword and matches while I'm walking. No, you can do it. You can just make up a nonsense one. Okay. So nonsense word. Yeah. Okay. Sometimes it helps people to think of like a syllable in a word too, you know? Doing great. Oh, okay. Oh, I won't. You're using that. That's good. Yes. Oh, that's great. It's a near point reference. Yes. I'm not going to take it. Can you think of anything else? So that might be okay. Did you do a bite? It has a bite. Oh, that's great. B-I-T, that would be great.
Well, now you just
Yeah, try to use some that are nonsense or detached syllable. For our Clover deck. For our Clover deck, they're going to be. Just for the Clover deck, just because then we have to think about the syllable.
Yes.
Okay, that means we have to think about the syllable. Oh, I know.
I wanted it to be bigger, so.
And just make sure, what did you use for your, did you use that pen for the syllables? Or did you use a Sharpie? Just use the same thing, because you don't want to give a clue as to, yeah. Make sure you're using whatever writing utensil you used for your closed syllables. Because I'm gonna show you how you're gonna mix them all up, and you don't want your students to have a cue, like, oh, I know you used that green pen for all of the, magic E syllables.
Okay, yeah, that's smart.
So that's why we have the black Sharpies. Could I? Okay, yeah. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's vowel consonant. It's fine. So this one, just because it's a candidate, so we're trying to brace the rules. So in English, we wouldn't try. So I would just.
You can tell I'm just really trying to figure it out.
I was like, chill out. It's fine. They can be on them. That looks great.
Yeah. Yep.
It is. It can be hard. Absolutely. And remember, at the end of the day, you know what you're supposed to do. As long as they recognize that you could spell.
She pointed and.
All right, so let me show you, we had talked a little bit about how we use our Clover deck. So this is, again, a great activity that you can pull out if your students are, you know, going to the bathroom and you have kind of a transition time. You're waiting to go to art and you have an extra 2 minutes. That you can grab your Clover deck and then you're gonna hold it up and then you can have the students identify either the vowel sound, the syllable type, or read the whole word. All right, so let's try it and listen for my cue of which one I want you to do. All right, syllable type. Closed. Good. All right, read it.
Bait.
Vowel sound. Vowel sound. Read it.
Ein.
Syllable type. Magic E. Good. Vowel sound. Syllable type. Read it. Read it. So you can kind of see. So just working on our syllable word, flexing between the different vowel sounds and the syllable types. All right, because of time, we're not going to practice together right now, but when we add another syllable type, we can practice. Put these with your closed syllables, though. I suggest if you need a rubber band, I can grab rubber band. I like to add, so your everything doesn't get confused, I always add a little card that says Clover Deck. All right, and put it together. Yep, and then just rubber band it together. I'll bring rubber bands while you're rubber banding together your Clover deck. On the index card, you spelled your magic E words on earlier. Go ahead and do this knowledge check and respond to these 3 questions. They're going to go all together, yeah? So you can put them together. I'm going to bring rubber bands.